I don't think we could have a better introduction to this final session than what we just saw in the cinema stories. So I'm going to go straight ahead and introduce to the stage for Up from the Roots, Chair Hugh Odling-Smee and his panel.
Hello, everyone. You saw the film, Now Meet the Man. That's kind of how this is going to work. Thank you, Eleanor, and thank you, Laura, for the glass of water. It was very nice. Good timing. And thank you, and welcome all to this final panel session of This Way Up 2022, Up from the Roots, where we can discuss community, hear about projects that have taken place over the last 3 years. Essentially, the idea behind this panel is that during COVID-19, there was a huge amount of activity that took place. A lot of politicians went on TV and talked about the power of community and how wonderful community was, and what a demonstration of what a wonderful country we really are. Fast forward now, and community isn't mentioned quite so much and isn't talked about in quite the same way. So I think the question that this panel is asking is, what is the future of community cinema, and what is the role and value that community cinema brings to our sector? We've asked that many times, but I think all of our experiences during the pandemic led us to kind of maybe reevaluate that. And I'm delighted to discuss this, that I'm joined by two wonderful practitioners. If you'd say your name and give us a little descriptor. I should say I'm Hugh Odling-Smee, and I'm a white guy with brown hair.
I'm Shona Thompson, and I am a white female with glasses, short brown hair, a unnaturally pink jumper today, and grey trousers.
And I'm Kevin Lowe. I'm a 46-year-old man with short hair and a beard that I used to describe as dark, but they're now very grey. I'm wearing a grey shirt, blue jeans, and I'm using a handheld mic because I have Tourette's, so if I start making noises, I can go like that. So, hello.
And also you're a Zodiac Manowar fan, which is good to know.
I very much am a Zodiac Manowar fan, yes.
Not many of them around these days.
No.
How we're going to structure this is Shona and Kevin are going to talk about some of the experiences they had during COVID-19, some of the projects that they worked on, and then we're going to sort of discuss the issue, and then obviously there is Slido. Get your Slido questions into, I don't know who's managing Slido in this one. Eleanor is Queen of Slido for this particular session, and so we'll sort of kick around the subject. So Shona, maybe you'd talk about your experience with the Coalfields Regeneration Trust and how that kind of got off the ground.
Yes, absolutely. So I work, as you see there, with Regional Screen Scotland, which is a cinema development organisation based in Scotland, and we run the Screen Machine, mobile cinema that goes around Scotland. And it actually started off with a conversation in RSS, short for Regional Screen Scotland, and it was about doing a creative regeneration project in partnership with the Coalfields Regeneration Trust. And that is an organisation that's UK-wide, and it's there to support the former coal mining communities in the whole of the UK, and they have a Scottish branch based in Kincardine in Fife. And so that conversation started, and they wanted to use archive and heritage as a way to give communities in Scotland their voice. And there's 88 former coal mining communities in Scotland. And so they approached myself, because I have a bit of a specialism in archive film and using the past to talk about the future and where we are as well at the moment. And that was in November 2019.
Good
4 months later. Yeah, but the COVID hit. Mm-hmm. So we felt obviously nobody had the capacity in the communities, particularly, to be doing a creative regeneration project. However, it was built as a project in another partnership with Folk Film Gathering, which is a film festival that is based in Edinburgh and Glasgow, and it's pretty much what it says in the tin. It's showing folk films from all around the world as well. So the sort of like song collectors, the sharing of stories of traditions, of customs, of folklore as well. And so the conversation carried on about this project. Coalfields Regeneration Trust had an emergency funding project. So they were giving out £1,000 awards to coalfield communities. And of course, everyone in this room will know the amazing work that has been going on during the pandemic, whether that's been getting activity packs together or getting food parcels taken out to people. And so CRT wanted to then share those stories. And so I worked with another filmmaker, Anne Milne, and we made films. We made 16 films over one summer in 2020, and with 11 communities. And the communities themselves were making the films almost. You know, I'd learned how to record a telephone call because most folk were still in lockdown. We're working with vulnerable people as well, who were shielding. And also Anne was making socially distanced filmmaking workshops, so people were making the films themselves still. So we ended up with these films. We put them online in October 2020 because still we couldn't really come back together. Certainly the communities couldn't get back into their community spaces to do something like a screening. We had over 5,000 views of the films online, and finally in 2022, because it was a big part of the project, and thanks to the funding being rolled over by Creative Scotland and Screen Scotland through Folk Film Gathering and also CRT, we were able to do the screenings of the films in the communities where they were made, which was just absolutely joyful to finally do that in 6 communities. We managed to do that across Fife, East Ayrshire, North Lanarkshire, and
So
West Lothian.
within the old mining community?
Yes, yes. Places where there was maybe already a community cinema, like Kelty, which is like one of the best in Scotland, but also places where there'd never been a community cinema too. So through funding from Regional Screen Scotland, we could actually start screenings, and there's still a few that are still continuing as well. So it was kind of like planting the seeds almost of a community cinema, I guess, in some respects, and it's growing. It's such a long-term thing, of course, but yeah, it's been great to see.
Kevin, so a lot of people in this room will know about Leigh Film Society. Elizabeth's been to the conference before. Elizabeth, who you saw on the film there, but tell us a little bit about how you got involved in Leigh and sort of the timing of that.
I got involved in November 2019. I've been volunteering in the community for about 10 years. I switched with my wife when she had our daughter. She did a year, then we switched, and I became a stay-at-home dad for 10 years. Did a lot of volunteering, then discovered Leigh Film Society. So I got involved with them then. Got involved with the screenings, got involved behind the scenes as much as possible, and then they also asked me to come on board with what at the time was called Project X, which was the film factory. And yeah, I've been involved since then. I'll tell you a bit. I'm not very good at talking about myself, so I'll tell you a bit about the society. You know, the Film Society was formed in 2013, and the purpose of it, since the very beginning, is to bring people together, get people talking, using film to create. We're talking about community. It's about creating community and being involved in wider communities. So that's the kind of thing that they did, and then I became involved, like I say, in 2019 with the plan. I got involved with the planning of the cinema, and then come March 2020 and the lockdowns happened, and everything went on hold. So you saw the film about the seats. They were stuck in storage for 2 years, gathering dust and things like that.
But Leigh also, I mean, you know, there were initiatives that Leigh put in place immediately. You know,
during the lockdowns, yeah. So we had the Orange Bags of Sunshine, which I'm sure some of you have heard about. They got talked about quite a lot, and that grew out of we have a classic film club once a month, which is basically the aim is to combat social isolation, which is one of the reasons I joined the society. It's something I struggled with. And so very quickly, it was Paul and Elizabeth mainly, they are the driving force, and very quickly realised that these people who had this thing once a month that they could come to, they could meet people, they could get out of the house and just spend some time, they didn't have it anymore, and we didn't know how long they weren't going to have it for. So Elizabeth got to work contacting as many of the people as she could, and just saying, how are you? you want to chat? Do you want some DVDs? We've got lots of DVDs if you want to borrow some. And a lot of people said yes. So they put it together, a bag full, 5 or 6 DVDs. They put a chocolate bar in there, a bag of sweets, and just take it out, drop it on the doorstep. And it grew. It started with just the people who came to the Classic Club, and then it went to other people heard about it. Care homes got involved. We do quite a lot of work with a charity called Everything Human Rights, who work with asylum seekers, refugees, and they asked us, so we started taking to them. Through that, we realised that there's quite a lot of people who don't have the means to watch these films. They don't. They use the term digital poverty. I think not everybody can stream. Not everybody has a DVD player. So we put a call out for people who could donate that kind of technology, and we got that, and the community really pulled together, and it was just like I say, they called it Orange Bag of Sunshine, and it was taking a little bit of light into people's lives, and it really took off.
Was the feedback good from the people?
The feedback was amazing.
Yeah.
Throughout, it got all over the place. People heard about it. But obviously, it was a way for us to stay in contact as well with the audience. It's a two-way thing. It's always a two-way thing. If you put films on, you can't do it if people don't come. And like I say, the reason we exist is to bring people together. So we want to stay in contact with them throughout things like that.
And I suppose with Project X, as you called it, was that like the secret code name? Did people kind of,
I think it just sounded a bit cool, Because we were going to be called. It was referred to as Leigh Community Cinema for a while, and we were into Spinners Mill, so some people called us Spinners Mill Cinema. Project X was what it was called, and then we came up with a Film Factory eventually, which
and so that has just opened 6 months ago, was it? Or
not even that. End of August was our opening, so 3 months we've been open. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And there's a great video on the Facebook page of Leigh as well of the opening night.
There's videos of the opening night. There's a longer version of that video up there, which I don't recommend watching because I'm on there much more, and I'm even more socially awkward than the other half. But yeah, there's a video of the build. We tried as much as possible to document it all the way along, because I was saying just outside, it's quite important that we've given the audience and the people of Leigh a kind of a sense of ownership of the place. It is Leigh's independent cinema, and we want them to know that they are welcome to come. So it doesn't matter what we're showing, whether we show a big film like Elvis the other month, or whether we're showing something that's possibly more challenging or less, or the kind of film that's not going to turn up at the Cineworld. It doesn't matter whether you've experienced that before. We want you to come, and I think one of the best ways of getting people to know they can do that is to say, this is your space. It's not we built it, but we built it for everybody.
Well, that's maybe moves us on just in terms of the kind of lessons that we learnt as a sector from COVID-19. I mean, did you, the experience you went through with the Coalfields for Generation Trust, but also, your work with Regional Screen Scotland and things like that. Do you think that people recognised the benefit of community cinema and how directly it can engage?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even just from the amazing work that you guys have done, recognising the importance of buildings and the importance of a building to bring people together, and where cinema can happen as well. I mean, we learned that so much in RSS during the pandemic, of each phase of the lockdown, trying to figure out whether community centres and community spaces could be open. Because it didn't come under any category that the Scottish Government was putting out. There was church halls, there was schools, there was cinemas, thanks to like UKCA and Screen Scotland lobbying the government to say, look, what is the deal here with cinemas? But you couldn't technically say a community cinema happening in a community space. So community centres weren't actually addressed in many of directly. So we couldn't give out advice and folk, and so then it ended up being with the local authority, and then you're like, okay, local authority. That's a whole other conversation. Then you're dealing with like 32 of them.
Yeah, you said the red tape maybe slowed it down slightly.
Yeah, well, they were under so much pressure too, and of course there was like they were being used for vaccine and spaces as well. So you had to really respect that, obviously.
And did you find that that you mentioned about the kind of importance of venue or building? Did you find that kind of people being cut off from their building was an issue for a lot of the community cinemas and a lot of the people you work with?
Yeah, that they it's somewhere to go to. I think just in a kind of like just something to do of a day, definitely. And in the coal mining communities, of course, the miners' welfare was the heart of the place, and it was always located in the heart of the place, next to the co-op. It's where everyone would congregate, and it's where a lot of the help started, and the good work was happening. So they were filling the bags to get them out. So again, their space was being used, and so community cinema was an option. But definitely doing it in 2022, it was the earliest we could definitely do it. And
there was a great response.
Yeah, definitely. Dander Hall, we had 100 people turn up at Dander Hall, and there was this amazing woman there.
Where's Dander Hall?
Oh, sorry, Dander Hall's in Midlothian, so just to the south of Edinburgh. We had the brilliant Cinemore 77, who came in with their projector and huge screen. Helen from the Guerrilla Gardeners group there. She said, I'll sell 108 tickets, it's fine. It's like £3 each. And I was like, I'd have been into the space and I was like, that's quite a lot of people to have this soon after the pandemic. and she got 108 people there. They had steak baguettes, soup, and everything laid on for it. And they had a cracking time. They showed Dennis the Menace as well, like the 2013 version. Because we were all like, all right. Pretty difficult to license off of Film Bank. They were great in the end. We made it happened in the end, but it was, we got Dennis the Menace and it's like, why am I doing that?
Well,
but it was cracking. It was great. And it's that coming back together, and we've definitely seen in RSS. We've been working on a programme called A Cinema Near You, which started in July 2019, and we've seen that screens have had to be delayed, and so it's only really been in the last sort of 6 months to a year that community cinema's been back. So it's
Kevin, you've opened in that time. Do you feel that like there was a sort of the work that you had done during the lockdowns and during the time when we couldn't screen? Do you think that helped the opening of the kind of new venue? Or?
Absolutely, yes. Probably one of the few good things to come from it was we had time, gave us time. So back in 2019, we just knew that we were opening and building a cinema. I don't think we knew exactly how we were going to do it. And then a few things came together. My wife got made redundant in November 2019. And before that, she was the lead store design for IKEA in UK and Ireland. So she knew a lot about planning spaces. So she designed it, did the layout.
More than most, I would say.
So she designed the layout. And then we all as a team talked about the kind of look we wanted, the kind of feeling we wanted. And then I kind of went and learned how to do that. You know what I mean? I'll tell you how I ended up being the person, because if you all saw the bar in there, I built that. I built all of that. That was me. And
the most important part of it.
Yeah. And what had happened is when I first came on the team, I think our first meeting, we said we wanted the bar, and Paul came along with this picture, and it was a bar on wheels, and it was about a metre wide. It was made out of scaffold board and pallets, and they wanted £2,000 for it. And they were seriously talking about how we're going to raise the money to get that. And I'm like, we're a charity, we can't spend £2,000 on a pallet wood bar. And I'd always been a little bit handy, you know, I couldn't put shelves up, and I made planters and things like that. And stupidly or geniusly, I don't know, I said, I'm sure I could build a bar. And they went, okay. And then it became my job. So then I had to kind of go and learn how to do that. So I had the time. And yeah, that was it. So it was kind of, we spent that entire time working towards something, but that 2-year period, I think we managed to fine tune what we were working towards quite a lot as well. And you know, everybody, we as a team, we're a very close team, and we all have different skills, and I think we've all discovered to an extent what our skills are and how to use them, and how to use the skills of our volunteer team, and just an idea of making a space that had a real identity.
I think it's quite interesting. We sort of, you know, I think the social impact of a lot of the work at community cinema is very clear and very obvious. And I mean, we all have stories in this room of the kind of impacts that we've seen of, you know, direct engagement of community cinemas with issues and social need and all those kind of things. And it's obviously there. How do we what's the word I'm looking for? How do we persuade government and persuade funders that this is a vital part of the overall sector? I mean, have you any lessons in terms of Scotland, in terms of talking to Screen Scotland, the government, kind of saying, you know, there are organisations in these communities that are important and need nurtured?
Yeah, I think this sharing the good news stories is a big thing that can be done by the groups that are doing it themselves. So so getting that story out, whether it's on Facebook or whether that's in the local newspaper. And then an organisation like Coalfields Regeneration Trust as well, which is nationwide, they're also then be able to tell other groups. So then the word of mouth is just so important, and we're feeling that in this room. It feels this the last couple of days as well. And those organisations like Coalfields Regeneration Trust, who are directly funded by the Scottish Government, they can then be reporting back to the Scottish Government. So then that story gets shared even further, and it's the story directly from the community. It's actually happening there, and engaging with those organisations, I think, that are lobbying, or not necessarily lobbying, but certainly in contact with or reporting back to the government. I think is important. And then the local side, it's engaging with the local authority, which is not easy, absolutely, because they're under so much pressure, fewer folk working there. But engaging with the other services that you're maybe in contact with as well. So whether that's like the health services that are going on or the sports services, then you're able to make a bit of a stand there. The Scottish Government have got their framework of planning, which just could be really bore the pants off you, but we have to have local place plans that they're wanting community groups and development trusts to put local place plans together formally, and we need to have cinema in there alongside the cafes, the shops, the sports centres, the churches, the schools, and so we try and advocate for that in RSS, and also CRT are doing similar. So they go into communities and they work with the community to put that place plan together. Sorry, the Coalfields Regeneration Trust. And so they go in and they do sessions with the community as well. So getting cinema in there. So we had a network event that is for all of their network, and we partnered with them on that event, and we talked about cinema in that as well. So it's different levels, but it's engaging with it. And there's so many organisations that are reporting back to the government, like Scotland's Towns Partnership. So they do all the bids, the Business Improvement District. So speaking to your local Business Improvement District group, and there's the Development Trust Association of Scotland. Constantly telling the story. Yes. Yeah. Exactly, I think so.
Kevin, in terms of Leigh, I mean, if I was a local councillor, I'd be there every night and kind of, you know, biting hand, because it's such an amazing story. I mean, many of the people in this room have heard that story and watched it grow from 2013. You know, and obviously, you know, our colleagues at Film Up North have been really involved in it and things. But have you found that local government and funders have kind of supported and you know are kind of being supportive?
In some ways, yes. I know Elizabeth's watching, so I don't want to get told off if I say anything.
Don't give any state secrets away. Yeah.
No, in some way, I mean, funders, we've had so much help from financial standpoint and just logistics and all that kind of thing. I'm very new at this, so I'm learning quickly, but possibly not enough. On a local council level, financially, it's been great. We couldn't have got it built without some input. But then the kind of the other stuff that we would be nice to get from them, which is basically letting people know we're there, sharing that we are part of the local community, doesn't seem as forthcoming, if you know what I mean. So it's kind of a bugbear of mine because I'm part of what I do is trying to get the word out there. I do the social media marketing and stuff like that, and it's difficult. It's difficult to let people know. There are people here from all over the country who know about us. There are people in Leigh who don't know we're there, and so when you see organisations that have such a big reach, it's quite frustrating when you've done something. We're very proud of what we've done. We're very proud of what we've created. And we think everybody who had anything to do with it should be shouting about it from the rooftops. And so it's a bit strange to me sometimes when that's not happening. So I would like local government to just engage more. And I don't know if that's the same with other organisations, but engagement is really important. Yeah.
Thanks. Do we have any questions from the floor, Eleanor?
We do. This actually links on really well from the question that you just talked about with funders, but this is more related to the wider sector. So do you think that the significant contribution that community cinemas and film societies make to film exhibition are properly recognised within the wider industry?
Can I answer that? Is that all right? Is it cheeky of me to answer this? I think at times it has been a poor relation, and its value sometimes has not been recognised. And I think that because the issues of scale are often how cinema are evaluated. Most of the statistics that we hear about the sector are large scale ones. 25% of the national audiences and all that sort of stuff. And I think there is a greater contribution, and I think what this panel is trying to highlight is the value and the kind of, it's not just about financials. It's a kind of wider impact, and I think when we as a sector start to manage that or measure that, then I think that's where the tipping point is. Maybe. I don't know, Shona.
Yeah, I think that kind of breaking community cinema is where it has the word community in it. We don't just say cinema. Yeah. And it's where it breaks out of just being about film, as it were, or the arts. It's actually going into a different sector. And I think that kind of avoiding remaining in a silo, I think I believe quite strongly in that we should be looking, when you said sector there at the end of that question, it's valued probably a lot more out with the film sector sometimes, that people can see that just coming together is what's valued. And so it would be great. We had a networking session yesterday that Harriet, my colleague at RSS, and I put together, and we specifically wanted to put DCI cinemas chatting to DVD, Blu-ray cinemas. It was a very, as I said at the time, a binary way of splitting up the room. But we asked folk to look at their role in the community, in their own communities, and what barriers they found. And looking at the post-it notes afterwards, it was a lot about growing audience. And there's such a potential there for different sizes and formats and types of cinemas to work together to reach different types of funding, and also to reach different types of people as well, I think, audience-wise, and to really connect. I don't know do you connect a lot with other cinemas in your area?
Not really. There aren't many, in the area, no.
Yeah.
So no, it's not something that I mean, I'd look at what others are doing.
Yeah.
But no, it's not something I'd like to. If anybody wants to get in touch with me.
If you're in the Leigh area, give them a shout. Any others?
Yeah, this is a question about volunteers. Obviously, community cinema quite often thrives on volunteers. So, how do you get younger volunteers involved?
It's difficult, but not impossible. So we did we did a work placement from a local high school recently, a week work placement. And because we're not a full-time cinema, there's not much work for them to do. So they got set a project to basically set up to program a week to talk about the cinema, to how would we bring in a younger audience, and what films they would program. And it astonished me that the work that they did. It was such a rounded program, and they thought everything through, and we were hoping, and we do hope that they will end up getting in touch and doing volunteering. But I think that's the way you have to do it, is to aim it at them. It's not a case of just saying we need volunteers. Oh, and if you're young and you like cinema, come along. You've got to give them something that they enjoy doing. Yeah. I think I went off on a bit of a tangent.
No, I think it's also about. I mean, Shona, you were saying about your favourite experiences about doing this kind of job. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because it was in Auchinleck in East Ayrshire where we screened one of the films, and it just really struck me when you're saying that. So in Auchinleck they have a community cinema, but they make it. It is primarily for kids, basically from sort of age 5 upwards to like about sort of 16 or 15, and you don't have to come with parents. I think over the age of 12 you don't need to come with your parents, so they totally just turn up, and it's an area of low income. There's not a huge amount going on other than the football team, which is really popular, but and they do it in the local community centre, which is huge. They've got a massive screen. And it's great. We showed Clifford the Big Red Dog and the short film that was being made, and like halfway through every screening, film stops, everyone gets hot dogs. That's how it works.
Everybody likes a hot dog.
Doesn't matter what's happening, stop the film, and the buzz in the room was great, and also the volunteers that were working it were youth workers, really, in many respects, but they were young. The guy who's doing the MCing was like the most confident young guy I've ever met, and he was like, I think he did it at the football as well. He was brilliant. He just does the kind of like MCing, and I think they could really see them having a responsibility and a role there, and it was very much encouraged.
I think part of it will go back to what I was saying before about ownership of the place. As long as you make the space or the organisation or whatever, as long as you make that welcoming to everybody and let people know that there is something for them there, whoever they are and whatever age, it's getting them through the door first, and then getting people to volunteer. One thing I try to do when people volunteer is basically say, what do you want to do? What are your skills? We have certain roles that we need fulfilling, but if you've got skills that we will think we can use, we will try and use them. If you're interested in social media, then you can take over from me, because I'm a mid-40s-year-old man who doesn't really know what he's doing, but I'm doing it at the minute. So it's just giving them things, making people feel valued. Yeah. That's a massive thing. I
think the ownership. I mean, we were talking about ownership outside, about kind of audience feedback, and like you're doing some programming, kind of collective programming through the audience and what they'd like to see and things like that. One of our community cinemas, the Sainted Newcastle Community Cinema, which I mention that every this way up, but they do loads of audience stuff, but they've also started like young programming panels now, because they got loads of young volunteers and didn't really know what to do with them, so they're now giving them a strand of the program to actually program and see what 17-year-olds actually want to watch, and things like that. So mostly it's horror, seemingly. There you go. Do we have time for one more? Yeah.
Yeah. Kevin, this one's for you. Did you and the team take inspiration from other community cinemas or ask others for advice with regards to Project X?
Yes. My first This Way Up was the online one, and the cinema stories that they did then was fantastic, and that was before we started the bill at all. So I'm very nostalgic for cinema. Me, I like the idea of I know it's a bit strange, but you know, this whole golden age and the Art Deco thing, and so I love that. So I tried to get the design. Well, there were two influences for the design. So there was the nostalgia of cinema, but then also the place. Wanted to really get a sense of the place, because if you don't know, our cinema is in a 100-year-old mill. We're on the 4th floor of a mill that was taken over by a preservation trust, and it's been divided up into a lot of units. So although a lot of the original character is there, some of it is hidden. So we wanted to create a space that was modern, and obviously with the auditorium is that, but we also wanted to give it something that had a sense of the space that it used to be. So yeah, talking about getting inspiration from other places, it's just inspiring to see what people do create, and the passion that cinema inspires, really. And you know, you can see from all these videos that people love what they're doing, you know, and it's really great to see people who go to work, or whether it's volunteer, and they go and they love it, and we love it. So,
Shona, do you want?
I did, yeah, just that idea of inspiring, and it's inspiring chatting to yourself, and we definitely see that a lot in RSS too. And I wanted to give a shout out to our Screen Network coordinators, in that we've been working with for the last couple of years, and they've been doing it for much longer than that. But organisations that are maybe an expert in cinema exhibition, like Driftwood Cinema, Screen Argyll, NEAT in Northeast Arts Touring, and newer organisations into film like the Touring Network and Generation Arts, and they're working and coordinating exhibitors in their particular geographical areas, but also areas of low income. Cinema 77 are working with groups there, and I think we've just been working with them about doing a Go and See fund. So for volunteers or people who work in organisations that may be wanting to do screenings can go out, and you know, we support them. Their train tickets and their, you know, event tickets to go and be inspired, and to go to somewhere and see what community cinema could be, because there's some cracking examples in all of those networks that are going on, and across Scotland definitely, and of course much wider. It's just having that inspiration, I think, is worth a lot as well.
All right, well, thank you very much, everyone in the room, and thank you all those watching at home. Thanks to Eleanor for the Queen of the Slidos, thank you. And but most of all, thank you very much for my guests, Shona and Kevin. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hugh and Shona and Kevin. And he's been very humble. It was the best looking bar anyone's ever built. So if anybody wants to go for a drink, it's beautiful. I don't know whether you take commissions, but might be a job there. So I won't keep you long. I just need to say a couple of points before you all dash for trains, planes and automobiles, as they say. Just to wrap up, really. I mean, for me personally, the last 2 days have been insightful. We've covered conversations that have identified shared challenges. We've worked through those together. We've explored some practical solutions that hopefully you can take away with some ideas, and we can help you through that. And I'm hoping that you go away with a slight sense of community and some hope, because it has been, again, another difficult year. One day we won't say that. But we want you to go with a sense of hope and a sense of community from the people that you've met in the room and for the people online. So I'm hopeful you'll do that. We've covered a lot of ground. So if you want introducing to specific speakers, if there's things that you would like resources on, email us when you're on the train in a couple of weeks. We're always there to help introduce you. There's a couple of things we're asked for during the sessions, and we'll put those resources and slides together and we'll send them through to you. But if there's anything specific that pops into your mind, just let us know and we'll do those introductions. I need to say a few thanks, if that's okay, if you'll bear with me. Massive thanks to all the speakers and to the delegates. Without you and the contribution you've made to Slido and the questions, it wouldn't be that sense of a conversation in the room, and that's been great. the loudest shout out, and if you wouldn't mind doing a big clap for me, has to go to the tech team. We've put them through the mill and they've been great, and that includes the amazing Laura on the front row, who is just, thank you. She does everything that I'm terrified of doing, so that's why we have to have her around all the time. I would also like to thank our sponsors, so the FDA, Indie Cinema, DCM, who are also very good at karaoke, Film Bank Media, Cinema Next, Eventive, Story Futures, and our funders, BFI, Screen Scotland, awarding funds through the National Lottery. I want to thank the wonderful This Way Up programming team. They spend hours behind the scenes, like thinking of speakers and conversations that'll be interesting for you. A particular shout out to Siobhan and our producer for this year, Tamara, who has put together a programme that hopefully you felt was really broad and really insightful. So thank you to them. Thank you to our hosts, the DCA. This is a beautiful building. I've really loved spending 2 days in it. So thank you to Beth. Thank you, David, especially in your new role. Good luck with it. Simon Lewis, Stephen Sinclair, Pauline and Stephen Catering. You've done a great job. Thank you so much. A couple of nice little reminders. We do need you to fill in the survey, please. You will probably be thrust a QR code on your way out. You don't need to do it now, but just scan it, and when you've got some time waiting for hopefully not a delayed train, if you could give us your thoughts, it helps us with, obviously with funding, but actually just what you want to see from this in the future. So please do if you can. Keep your badge if you're hanging around. You get 10% off in the shop, which is very exciting because it's a lovely shop. And if anybody isn't leaving and is staying around for tonight, you can see a film here with a £5.50 ticket. So just show box office and you can get that discounted ticket if you're staying around and want to watch a film. Thank you, David, for sorting that for us. Two last things before I mic drop, although I can't drop this one. Drinks in the bar for anyone whose train or plane isn't for a while. So we're going to be meeting in the meeting room upstairs, and drinks on us. Come and have a drink before you leave. And I'm going to finish by stealing a little sentence from one of our panels. I hope to see you in the future, and especially I will see you in the Dream Palace. Thank you.